Today we've got Jana Cardona, who's coming back after a few months to talk more about how to use your strengths in business and have your best day at work over and over and over again. And we're excited to have Jana back. Just to give you a little information about her, she's got an extensive background in working with individuals and also small and medium-sized businesses in the areas of networking and building relationships and referrals. I think a few months ago, we had her talking about networking and referrals, which is an excellent workshop. For the past 22 years, though, she's been a franchise owner with BNI, which is Business Network International. She locally owned the franchise, has recently sold that business. And now she's expanding her area of expertise. She's now a certified Gallup strength coach and also pursuing certifications in DISC and other assessment modalities. And her goal is to guide individuals and small business teams to discover their unique talent DNA, which is the value they personally bring to the world. Through workshops and coaching, she helps them develop a plan to deliver that value in their own unique way. She's married with 2 children and 8 grandchildren, and her passion is in impacting people's lives to create the success they were designed to make. So we're more than happy and thrilled to welcome back Jana Cardona to OBDC to talk about how to utilize your strength in business. Jana, welcome to the OBDC. How are you?
I am great, Taylor. How are you?
Doing wonderful.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me back. Awesome. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. And I can't see you, but I hope that you will be able to interact with me because we're going to go through, we titled this Your Best Day at Work, but I put in parentheses at the bottom, if you can see the screen. This could be your best day at work, but it could be at school, it could be on a team, or wherever you are. The principles I'm going to talk about today have everything to do with all parts of your life. And you want to have more of those. So that's what we're going to talk about. You do have a chat at the bottom of your screen that I would really like. In person, I would have you doing things and raising your hand and saying out loud. But since we can't do that on a webinar, I really need you to just write a few things in the chat, and Taylor's going to be monitoring that for me and kind of telling me what you say, because it means a lot to this presentation. So get prepared to do a little interaction on that chat. And also you'll have a pencil and paper for one exercise that I need you to do if you can. So when we're looking at our best day, whatever it was, we're good at remembering what happened. We can tell that a lot. The problem is, it's harder to discern why it happened. And if we don't realize it, we think why it happened has to do with just all the happenings of the day. But there's more to it, and I want to show you that today and share with you there's a reason behind why we have good days and why we have not so good days. And if we don't know why, or if we only could figure that out, then we could have more of those days. So that's what I'm going to be working with you on today, and hoping to share some information so that you maybe can stop and think about how to have better days all the way around, no matter what you do. So let's first think about what drains you, right? We all get drained. We have things that just energize us and things that just wipe us right out. So sometimes things that drain us are if you have difficult things to accomplish, you just don't feel you're very competent at it. And you're like, I hate doing this. I don't want to do this or whatever. Or doing a job you hate, or you don't see a purpose in it. It's useless to you, but you have to do it. Maybe you work with a boss, or maybe if you're a student, a teacher, who you don't feel understands you or respects you. That's another drainer that you have. And maybe you're interacting with people who are always asking you questions, and you put out an idea and they drill you with 20 million questions. And you're like, don't you trust me? Can't you just take what I say? Those things drain. Or maybe you work on a team where there's conflict, friction, and you just, it's uncomfortable. Or maybe you deal with people that you conflict with, and we all have that at times. Or maybe you've carried around a label. It's typically your weakness that you just got labeled that, and it's what you think you are. So I want to show you this exercise, and this is where you'll need a pencil and paper or a pen. I want you to write your name. Just write it as if you were signing a check, which most of us don't do anymore, but just pretend that you're signing a check and just write your name. And hopefully you're doing that because I can't see you. So I'm hoping that you're picking up that pen and writing. Okay, now, shouldn't have taken you very long. I want you to switch hands. So whatever hand your dominant hand was that you just wrote with, move the pen to the other hand. Now, I want you to try and do it again. Write your signature. And if we're in person, I would hear these groans sometimes from people like, oh, you know, or oh, it's not so good. And so if you could put in the chat, just a few of you, put in the chat how that made you feel to write with your dominant hand first. Give me some words that you felt that would be significant when you write with your dominant hand. And if you can read them to me, Taylor, that would help.
Smooth and routine.
Yeah, it's routine, right? It just is what it is. Anything else? Some people say natural, easy, right? It's those things come because we're just so used to it. But what about when we switched hands? What happened then? How did it make us feel? Anybody want to say? And if not, I'll fill it in.
Definitely awkward.
Ah, yeah. It's definitely awkward, right? We're like, oh, I don't really want to do this. And sometimes we have to. What else, Taylor? Sorry.
Hard to look at. Hard concentration.
Yeah, it is. It's very hard. I had to do that once because I had surgery on my dominant hand. And for 6 weeks, I had to write. I can't read anything I wrote. It was bad, really bad. But I had to do it because it was what I had to write things, but I couldn't read them afterwards. So this is what I want you to think about as we're going through here. We would prefer to do everything from that dominant side where it's easy, where it comes naturally, where it's just, it is what it is, right? But sometimes we have to operate on the other side. And too often, maybe some of us are doing things that we are not comfortable with because we feel we have to, or whatever it is. I want to help you maybe see a different way to figure your life. So we're going to analyze why was that day or experience that you think about that's a really great day or many days, why was it so good? Here's the reason. You were using your strengths. Just like writing with your dominant hand, you were doing what came naturally to you and what you're good at. But when you switch sometimes and move to the other hand, it's not so easy, right? So we're going to explore some of the things about this. This is new to some people, a lot of people. It was new to me about 6 years ago when I first got introduced to it, but it changed my life when I learned about this and how to operate my life in strengths. How did this come about? What are strengths and where did they come from? There was a gentleman by the name of Donald Clifton, and he's now known as the father of that strengths movement, strength psychology. And I apologize, for some reason when I put these together, it looked great, but when I started showing him as a slide, it put the psychology a little different. But he was in World War II. He was a bomber, and he did 25 successful bombing missions, and he got the Distinguished Flying Cross for his heroism. But you know what? He was tired of war. He was sick of seeing it. And he made a promise to himself that when he came back from the war, he'd spend the rest of his life doing good for mankind. So he started to study human development. But problem, every psychology book that he found out there focused more on what was wrong with people, how to fix people. And he didn't find anything that had to do with what was right about them. And he got really tired of living in a world that revolved around fixing weaknesses. He did not want to focus on that. So he asked this question: what will happen when we think about what's right with people rather than fixating on what's wrong with them? And you've got to know this world, there's a lot of focus on what's wrong with people. So he put a team together. He actually founded a research company. It was called Selection Research. And it was later acquired by Gallup. And he became, and everybody knows the term Gallup, it's the big statistics company that everybody knows about. But the founder of that, he became their chairman when they acquired that company. And he created a team. And for 40 years, they studied this language, and they came up with this language of strengths. And it's 34 of the most common talents that people have. And all people have them, but they are in different orders in people. So some are stronger in one than another. And they called it the Clifton Strengths Assessment, or StrengthsFinder. Some people know it as that. And that now over 25 million people have taken the strengths assessment. They've taken strengths into the workplace, into individual lives, into churches, on teams, in schools. It's all over the globe. And there's a lot of companies, big companies, that use it, like Southwest Airlines is a strength-focused company. They use the StrengthsFinder for all of their employees. There's a lot of companies that use it. And what they've determined is that when they use it, it creates amazing results in their companies and families and teams and schools. But I'm going to show you some stats from a company. In 2005, they took the assessment into the work environment, and they were wondering, okay, what happens if managers focus on employee strengths? And then what happens if they do it on weaknesses, they focus on them? Or what if they ignore them totally? What were the results of that? So here's the statistics that come out of it. If your manager ignores you, or your parent, or whatever ignores you, you get disengaged. 40% of people just tune out, turn off. If they focus on your weaknesses, at least they're focusing on something. You don't like it, but you're somewhat engaged. You almost have to be. So 22%. But if they focus on your strengths, only 1% of workers are disengaged. That's huge when you think about the workplace. So how does it impact you monetarily? If you're an owner of a business, if you work in a business, disengaged workers cost companies an average of $3,400 for every $10,000 they're paid. So if someone was making like $50,000 in their company, that company lost $17,000 because that worker did some of these things. They dreaded going to work. They had more negative than positive interactions with colleagues. They had problems. They didn't treat customers right. This is one reason why Southwest Airlines uses strengths, because they're so customer oriented that they say they want all of their employees to be happy, so they treat their customers well. And then these dissatisfied people tell their friends that I work for a miserable company, right? And they don't achieve much. They waste a lot of time. They don't have as many creative moments. And this is what's bad. It impacts your health and your relationships, because you take that home and you're just not happy there either. So sometimes it impacts your entire life when things don't go well. The key that we're wanting to work on is the key to success that Gallup now has determined in all the studies is to understand how to apply your greatest talents and strengths to your everyday life. And that is what's going to show in the type of things that you can create happiness from. So let's analyze what will happen. When you focus on your strengths, people are 6 times more engaged. They just like to do the things they're doing. And they're 3 times more likely to report that they have an excellent quality of life. So what are these talents or strengths? Let me give a definition to you. Talents describe us. They influence our choices. They direct our actions. They explain why we're better at some things than others. And some of you, if we were in person, you could say, amen to that. So-and-so is much better at this. I'm not so good at that. We always know what we're not good at, right? It helps us filter our world, and it influences our relationships big time, and our activities. And it describes how we feel and behave. So the difference between a talent and a strength, we all come wired. Every single one of you has talents. And those are just natural ways you come wired. It's your talent DNA. You come wired, thinking, feeling, and behaving in certain ways. It's not just about your personality. This is not a personality test. It's about your performance, how you interact. But if you continue to focus on your talent, which is what I'm going to spend the most time helping you understand that you need to do, it moves into the strength category. And then in a strength category, it's like you have consistent, near perfect performance. Think about some of these amazing athletes that focus in their strength category. They're amazing. their near perfect performance, not always, but near perfect, because nobody's ever totally perfect. But that's what a strength is. So my focus today is to help you to go from a talent to a strength, not on your weaknesses. And I know that some of you can't stay for the whole time, so Taylor asked me to let you know if some of this, as we go through this, interests you, but you don't know anything about it, you want to learn more, just email me. My name is Jana, Jana, and then put Jana.Cardona, Cardona, @gmail.com. And I'll say it a couple times during it, because this is a fascinating subject and you might want to know more. Or you might want to take it into your school or workplace or whatever. So talents and strengths, as I said, there's 34 of them, and they call them themes. And they're like what motivates us. And they're also how we interact. And I'm going to show you that in a little bit about how we interact on a team. And it reveals who we are. But this is what I love, who we can become. It's our infinite potential. And that's one of my passions for working in this field now, is I see too many people who shortchange themselves and who really don't do what they're good at, and they don't think they have the talent. I want to help them see they can. So when you work in your strength zone, you actually look forward to going to work or school or wherever it is. You're more positive than negative in your interactions with your coworkers. You do treat customers better. You're just happier. And you tell your friends you work at a great company. Now imagine if you're the employer and you do this to your employees, they're going to say, I love my job. I love my employer. You have to think about all aspects of what you're involved in. And I don't know who you are or what you do, but think of the aspects of your life. You'll achieve more on a daily basis and you'll be more positive and creative. All of those things come and you'll get to say, hey, I love what I do. That is huge because most people can't do that. Unfortunately, though, this is more the world we live in right now. And we have deficit mindsets. I'm not good enough. You might have said this. You might have heard people say this. Some of your family members might say this. I'm stupid. I was behind the door when all the talent was given out. I hate my job. I hate my school, or whatever you hate. I can't seem to get anything right, so why try? And some people don't speak up. This was me. I don't speak up because my ideas are never as good as somebody else's. And you always feel like you're just not measuring up. Now, if you focus on people's weaknesses or they focus on yours, you lose confidence. You totally lose confidence. And one of the reasons that we lose confidence is because we too often, put labels on people. Our schools are the worst. Unfortunately, most of the labels that we ascribe to children overlook what's right. They're slow learners. They can't read. You name it, they're it, rather than what they're good at. And I have a couple stories to share with you. But what if we change the focus from labeling weaknesses to proclaiming them as strengths? Now, here's a story. I told you I'd share a couple stories. There was a girl named Susan. And in school, when she was young, she was brought up in the 60s. So think about the 60s and the age that it was. She was brought up and she was always labeled bossy, pushy, demanding, because she had a very forthright personality. And as a girl, she was always told, you'll never get married, you'll never find a husband because you're too bossy, you're too pushy. She said if she'd been a boy, she would have been labeled as a great leader, but she was a girl, right, in the 60s. Tone it down, get married, have a good life. So she started believing that, and she started toning herself down. And she started to believe what she was told. So she didn't speak up, and she really didn't come out of herself. She started to squash what was inside of her. She did the right thing that everybody told her to do, conform to the image that she has. She grew up, got married, had kids, and she was just never quite what she could be. And finally, she said, it changed when she opened her own company. And she said, finally, I realized that she has one of the strengths you'll see later, command and self-assurance. And she has maximizer, which means you always want to make everything better. Then her bossy, demanding, and pushy made sense to her. She came with that. But sometimes when we're kids, they're what's called raw talents. We don't know how to use them. So they end up being a little bit raw. And that's what happened to Susan. But now she owns her own real estate firm. She's able to be quote unquote bossy, pushy, and demanding, but she's very successful. Now, sometimes you're labeled stupid, slow learner, a quitter. So I'm going to tell you another story about a guy named Steve. He was raised in Arizona. He had 3 sisters and a mom and dad who unfortunately divorced when he was young. So he was brought up by his mom as a single parent. That really affected him, but he was really bad in school. They didn't label it at the time, but he happened to be dyslexic, but no one knew it. So of course he wasn't a good student. And he never completed tasks. The neighbors asked him to paint their fence one time, trying to help him out. Well, he quit. So his mom had to finish it. He just never finished things that just weren't that interesting to him. But his mom could have focused on his weaknesses, because the school certainly did. And they were telling him, you know, he's just not learning. He was labeled stupid, slow learner, quitter, all of those things. Kids made fun of him in school because he didn't finish his work and he had problems. So our kids are bullied and lots of things happen, right? But she noticed something, and she started to look at what he could do. He loved making movies. And so he went to a camp. She took him out to the desert, where he actually created some movies. And one time he wanted her to buy 30 cans of cherries, and he actually took them out. She was out there with him and her pressure cooker, and he actually exploded all those cherries, and he loved what it did, and he filmed it all. So she realized that he really loved doing things like that. So she just let him continue. She helped him to be a little better at school, to do what you can do, but don't stress over it because you're really good at movies. So to her credit, and he said this later, he said, I never felt like a victim, even though I was labeled, because my mom believed in me. She let me do what I was good at. And he said the movies really helped him. They kept him from being shamed or guilty about what he wasn't doing, because he knew he could do something right. And so he kept on doing that. He kept on developing, and he actually ended up starting to have a career behind the camera. So maybe you now are starting to get a feel for who this Steve might be. But if you know movies like Jaws, E.T., Indiana Jones, Steven Spielberg, that was his life. But thankfully, his mother didn't focus or label him or allow him to be able with those weaknesses. So we have in our society a maxim. It's like you can be anything you want to be if you just try hard enough, right? You hear that a lot. That has a pitfall in it. And if you've seen the movie Rudy, again, I would ask you to raise your hands, but I can't see. So if you've seen the movie Rudy, it is about a guy he was the groundskeeper at Notre Dame. He was 23. And he really wanted to be a football player so bad. And what he did, he was 5'6", weighed 165 pounds. So he wasn't built like a football player, right? But he had heart for doing it. He wanted to do it so bad. So he applied to Notre Dame. He got rejected 3 times. He kept on doing it, kept on doing it. Finally, he got accepted. And he was accepted on the ball team, on their practice squad. And so all of his college, he played on that practice squad. He got beat up all the time because he was little compared to those guys, but he kept on going and he kept on going because he really wanted to play. But he was never allowed to join the team, never sat on the bench with the team until his senior year. He was allowed to suit up, and he actually was able to sit with the team, but his coach wasn't going to play him. But it was the last seconds of the Notre Dame game. They were definitely going to win. There was no chance they would lose. And the guys really liked him. He was a nice guy. And so they forced the coach, please let him in. We're not going to lose. Just let him play one little thing. So they put him in at the last few seconds, and he actually tackled the quarterback of the other team. And woo, everybody just, was just amazed. He became an instant hero. The fans, Rudy, Rudy, Rudy. And you see the movie Rudy. He was actually invited to the White House. He met President Clinton. He met Colin Powell. And he actually got to meet football legend Joe Montana. But look at what happened. his perseverance is very admirable, like a lot of people who overcome adversity. He ended up playing a few seconds in a college football game that took him thousands of hours of practice. Now, we could applaud that, and you could work really hard and be an inspiration in that way. Or maybe it's maybe not worth it. One little thing of fame might not be all that you need to have it be in your life. So we need to analyze that and think about what maybe could we do. It's when we're looking from our birth, our cradle, to our cubicle, if we're going to work, we devote more time to trying to fix our shortcomings than we do strengthening our strengths. So a lot of times we create icons out of those people who struggle, like Rudy. And that makes us think, we could do anything, we could do anything. But whoops, maybe what we need to do is we need to think about how we might be able to change that. And that is what strengths is all about. So this little diagram is what the Clifton Strengths looks like. And again, if you want more information on it, just email me, Jana. It's Jana.Cardona, Cardona @gmail.com. But he divided it into 4 quadrants. And these are the quadrants that most talk about how you interact with people. So there are people who are stronger in the thinking theme. So if you're in that, you likely make good decisions and you're all about critical thinking. So you like to analyze information, and you basically, sometimes you might be called a nerd. You're nerding out on certain topics. You like research, you like predicting, you like processing information, and that's you. And that you might be strong in that. It's not that everybody is in just one lane. You're not. You have multiples of everything, but some lanes you're more dominant in. Influencing, if you're dominant in that, you're one of those people that can rah. If something needs promoted, you're it, man. You go out there and you do it, and you can do all those things that promote. You bring attention to change. So you're a freedom, you look more for freedoms, and you speak up for the underdog, or you speak up for a team. You're comfortable with taking charge, and you give others a voice when they can't, or they're not strong in this field. You don't mind giving them your voice. The people with relationships as being a strong point, it's all about people skills. You're usually high in emotional intelligence department. You just focus on people and how you come across. You build rapport easily. You help others feel seen and heard. And you really appreciate people. You appreciate their differences. And you're a good team builder because you want to make sure everybody's happy on that team. Then there's those people who are more executing. They actually get things done. They make actions happen. And in a work setting, they turn that invisible into visible. And something that's 30,000 foot level, you bring it down and you can create that street level. You can create that plan to get things done. Here's the strengths that are listed there. There's 34 of them. I'm not going to go through all of them. And some of them aren't the definitions that you would think of in a dictionary. But these are the things that you would get back when you take your assessment. And that would be the things that you would find out about yourself and how you're wired. Now, I'm going to share with you my personal story and why this is such a passion for me. My life, when I was younger, I was in an environment where my mom was pretty insecure. She was very friendly and everything, but inside she was very insecure. So everything us kids did when we were younger, somebody could always do it better than us. And her way of inspiring us was to compare us. And we were always on the short end of the sticks. I was the oldest, so I took the brunt of all of that comparison. And I literally started growing up thinking I just wasn't very good at anything. I started being extremely quiet because I just wasn't good at anything in my head. And so I didn't feel like what I had to say was worth it. As I went into college, though, actually, I got to tell you something. In my senior year, in our yearbook, I was labeled the shyest girl in my senior class. I didn't talk to anybody, didn't ever go out for anything. I wasn't known for anything but being shy, which is a horrible label to put on somebody. I went into college and thought, yeah, I'm never going to be a leader. I'm not going to be able to do anything. But thankfully, I was mentored by some people who believed in me. And by the time I was finished with college, I was actually speaking in front of people at the college. I was actually the head of our women's whole department. And it was just a transformation for me. But then my daughter, my children were adopted. My daughter had just a belief that, okay, somebody gave me away, so I'm not that good. But in kindergarten, she was excelled in storytelling and talking, and she won the storytelling competition for the whole city in kindergarten. And she was on recycling, and we put her up as Little Red Riding Hood, recycling through the forest. And she didn't have any problem until she hit third grade. Third grade completely changed her, and she ran up against a teacher who didn't accept the way she learned. And everything became she can't do this, she's not good at that, she's horrible at this, she's undisciplined, and she had all these labels. And her whole world changed. She became introverted, she became angry, she was mean to kids. All of that changed, totally not her. And it ruined the rest of her high school life. So when I came across this assessment and saw mine, it changed my world. Because for me, this little assessment that you see, you usually get back your first 5 at first. And I numbered mine. My first one is learner. I love learning, but I learn different ways. I learn so I can teach other people. I learn so that I can take it and use it. My second one's developer, which means I like developing people. And my daughter now looks back, and she used to, because she was so angry at life and at me, she used to say, I hate you, I hate my life, or whatever. And I always stuck by her, because developer will stick by people longer than they'll stick by themselves. And I won't give up on you, even if you give up on yourself. And she says that now, you never gave up on me. I didn't know I had that in me until I took this assessment. Responsibility is big for me. If I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm really going to do it. Belief is all about my values. I don't compromise. There's a lot more to it, but I'm just giving you a quick overview. And individualization is something where I look at people and I see you differently. I don't see you as one lump mass. I see you as having this skill, you as having this belief, you as having whatever it is you do. I see you individually. But if you notice, I have kind of an equal in relationships and executing. But look at my influencing. For my first top 10, I have nothing. So now I know about myself that I can't promote things. I'm just not good at it. It's way low on my strengths. I have all 34 of mine. It's way low. And I need to be able to know what I can do, what I'm good at, what I can't do as well. Not that I can't do it. I can promote if I had to, but I'm not good at it. So why burden myself with that? So what I've done, and this is part of the assessment that you'll find out if you ever take this, is when you get your first top 5 back, the statistics are you're 1 in 275,000 people who have the same top 5 as you in whatever order. So you are very unique and you're special. You were brought here and you came wired with something to give. And too often, and this is my passion for what I do now, too often people don't realize that. And they need to see they're worth something. They need to see what they have inside that's really worth using and be able to use it. So that's what I do now. And that's why I love it. And when you have this understanding, every person has a potential for success, but it's not always in every area. The key to building on human development is really knowing who you already are, and then put the energy where you have natural ability, and then you become extraordinary in your growth. That's what happens to you when you focus. So just as talents are innate, there's weaknesses that are innate. And you have to learn to manage those. That when we start looking at weaknesses and we focus too much on them, and we don't focus on the strengths, then you become mediocre. You might try and try and try, but you're never going to be excellent at something that you're not that great at. I can try all I want to promote, but there's always going to be people that are better promoters than me. I don't want to waste my time anymore doing that. It's too much time and energy. There's a much better way. I can learn to manage it rather than focus on it. So let's just change this way of saying you can be anything you want to be to say you cannot be anything you want to be, but you can be a lot more of who you already are. And that's pretty hard for us. So I want to have fun as we wrap this up to ask you, to show you that there's a lot of differences that people have, okay? So if you are a person who solves the plot of a movie before anyone else, typically in an environment where I could see you, I'd have you stand up. And there would be people standing up. Yeah, I do. And everybody always hits me because I always know what's going to happen. Well, manage it and just zip your lip and let everybody figure it out. But some of you are really good at this. What about if you're accused of asking too many questions? Some people are just, you're always asking so many questions, you know? What about if you're always wanting to learn something and you learn and you're mentored all the time? I always sought out mentors. I always sought out classes. I'm constantly taking a course or doing something where I can learn, but I always do it so I can apply it. Some people learn on the internet. My husband has Learner, but he learns a totally different way. He learns on the internet. He just likes to be the fact person, like I know everything about it. And he does, but I don't care. I just want to learn what I need to learn to develop, which is my second one, other people. All right, so if you're those, you might be a strategic thinker. Your domain or your strengths are more in line with that. And they line up where you love thinking. You like data and facts, and you have big pictures all the time that you can see. You can see the big picture, and you know exactly when something happens where you need to go, and you can create a plan. Those are those kind of people that really know how to manage. Okay, and you show people what could be, and it's just like your strength is your future. You think about things. All right, now what happens if you are the kind of person who likes to take charge? People listen to you. You're showing everybody what they need to do. Is that you? Okay. What about if you talk to everybody? You're in an airport, you go to a networking event, you're all over the place. You don't meet strangers. You love to get to know people. There are people like that. You talk to them in elevators, you talk to them anywhere you can. What about people who love to compete? Some of you are very competitive. And some of us, like me, I'm not at all competitive. I don't like to be competitive. It's not in me, but it's in some people. So what might you end up giving some inclination to? You're more influencing, and see where I am not, right? You are. So you're always selling a team idea, or in or out of the organization. You take charge, you speak up, you make sure others are heard. So you're the voice of other people like me who can't speak up for that. I can speak and I can teach, but I just don't promote. And you look like somebody who has a lot of energy. People label you an extrovert typically. And you just like to motivate. You're big on freedom, speaking out on freedom to act, freedom to make changes. So sometimes you'll do things like marching, you'll have a cause. It's those kind of people that some of us go, I don't know how they do that. It's because they have this theme that dominates in them, and they are their influencers. What about if you're accused of being too nice? Right? Some of us are just labeled too nice. Or what about you love to mentor people? Is that you? Maybe. What about if you're so positive all the time? Like everybody goes, man, you just see everything. You're so upbeat all the time. These are engaging people. You like to be around them. They're just so upbeat. And they even see a negative and figure out a way around it. These are what we call the relationship people. And you're not, like I say, you're not dominant in just one lane. You have little bits of everything, but some are far more stronger in you than others. So these people always say, oh, you really care about people. You develop relationships a lot. You like to listen to the unvoiced people, and you don't want people to be left out maybe. And you hear the hearts of people, you feel their emotions maybe. It's those kind of things. You're good on a team at building relationships and keeping the team together. These are people that really help you on your teams. All right, for those people that make a to-do list even on the weekends, what about you? Are you that kind of person? Or do you arrange your closet in color order? Okay. Or is somebody like, man, you're so focused, you don't even know I'm here, right? Your thoughts are there. Your domains might be more executing. You want things to happen. You get things done. See, I have some executing in me. So I organize my clothes by color, right? And I make to-do lists even on weekends. Those kind of things structure me, but I'm also big in relationships. It's really freeing when you finally get where your lanes are and where they're not. That's what's so helpful about these things. So let's imagine if you were on a team and how these understanding these might play out. So your team's been given an assignment. And what if you had 4 different people from 4 different strength domains and you had this task to do? A person who's in the influencing, like ready to get going, one of their themes might be activator. It means somebody who likes to just jump in and think about it on the way. So it's like, let's get going and we'll figure out the details as we go. You know those people, right? But on your team, you have an analytical person who goes, wait, we don't have all the facts. We don't know. We don't know enough yet to move. So slow down. And you're like, no, I can't. And you're slow down. But then you have somebody in the relationship end, and they're more, oh, we need to make sure everybody is okay on this team and everybody's doing what they're supposed to. And they're like slowing things down too, but for people's sake. Then you got this person over in the corner who's quiet, and they're looking like they're not saying anything. They're what's called deliberative. They're more in the executing domain where they need time. They listen really carefully to everything that's said. They think about it. These might be people you walk by their office and they're just sitting there. They don't look like they're working. And a boss might go, or your child might go, you're not working. What are you doing? You might tell your child that. They might be deliberative. They might be thinking it out. They're working, but it's all in their head. These people on a team, if they knew what they were doing, this is why a lot of people like Marriott, Hyatt, Southwest, they all use this type of thing because then they can help their people understand each other. So instead of getting mad between the activator and analytical, like one's trying to slow the other one and the other one's trying to pull on them, you go, okay, you need some data? We'll give you some data. I need to cool off a little bit and just be a little bit more patient. If you understand that, it works much better. That's the way it works in workforce engagement, in team building, in anything you do. If you understand what that is, it can help you to know what you can excel in. Now I know what I can excel in, and that's why I made the decision to move in this direction, because my expertise is in caring about people and teaching them and helping them do better. And that's my whole passion for what I do now. And you can be aware of what you can contribute to the team and what you don't. And when you don't, like my influencing theme, I need people to influence. So I might partner with somebody who's maybe stronger in that field than me. That's okay with me now. Before I would think, oh, I'm not good at that, beat myself up. Now I don't care. I know I'm not good at that. It's okay with me. Somebody else is really excellent. And it also helps us understand how we come across to other people. Like back to that team, how we impose ourselves on others. And we're not even aware of it. It's just the way we think. And we're out there moving around and getting things done. So we have better awareness. We can regulate our behavior. We can tone ourselves down or ramp ourselves up. We just learn how to interact with other people. And it helps us understand. And it gives us security. It gave me security when I realized I didn't have to try to measure up to everybody else. And I was who I was. And I was good at who I was, not things I wasn't good at. It totally changed my perspective. So when we look at your day, your good day, let's just take 2 examples. If you have a great day and it's involved in an important project with your best friend at work, it resonated because it was important. So notice the word important, and it was with your best friend. So chances are you have responsibility. You really want to do important things and you want to complete the task. You want to be responsible. But relators, they like working with their best buddies. They don't have tons of people, not like the person who gets to know everybody in the room. These people are selective. Your best friend made a good day. Now, what if your best day included clearing your agenda by noon, and then you had a lot of excess time left? So you checked every task off, and you had an extensive list, and you had hours to spare. Now notice everything I put in capital letters is what's called a qualifier. It wasn't the activity of doing the project and, getting it done. It was a key that those words like important and best friend, those qualifiers are the key to your unique mix of strengths. If you don't understand them, then you're not sure how to duplicate them, right? And if you know, then you can replicate yourself. You can deliberately look for opportunities to use your strengths at work or any aspect of your life. And if you have a boss, I have a friend who's into strengths. He works at Walmart, and he tells his boss, if he's asking him, he's in management, and he says, hey, I want you to do this. And Leroy says, well, do you want it done super well, or do you want it done? Because if you're giving me and you expect it super well, I'm just going to warn you in advance, it's not really a good strength for me. I can get so-and-so to do it. Or if you just want it done, I'll do it. And that helps them to be able to communicate that you're not always going to be a disappointment to your boss. The more you're able to play to your strengths, the more great days you're going to have. So as we wrap up, when you are operating within your top strengths, everything's easier. It's more fun. You're far more emotionally gratified by that whole experience, and everybody around you is happier too. So let's end with this quote. If a man does not, let's read this again because my little screen's in the way. My man does not keep pace with his companions. Perhaps it's because he hears a different drummer. So let him step to the music which he hears, however measured or far away. In other words, let each person be who they are and be happy with who they are, because that's the way we roll. And usually we have questions and answers, but I don't think we'll be able to do that unless you want to put them in the chat. I don't know, Taylor, but I'm going to stick my information up here. And I'm going to make an offer to you. If you know an organization looking for this type of thing or a workshop, I'm glad to help out in that. And if you wanted to discover what your strengths are, you can contact me and I'll show you how to get an assessment. And I will, for the first 3 that contact me, and my email is Jana, Jana Cardona, Cardona @gmail.com. I will give you a 30-minute free consultation after you get your results so that you'll know a little bit more about what you do. And here's my information if you need it. And Taylor, I don't know if we have time for questions or if there are questions, but I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, we got time for some questions, so go ahead and put those questions in the chat, and Jana will ask them. I do have a couple questions for you, Jana.
Okay.
Just for listening out there who don't have a chance to chime in here, especially for business owners. How can they utilize this strength assessment either for their own self-leadership or to learn more about their own employees and team members? Because I think that's a pretty important part of this thing, right?
Right. Usually what Gallup recommends we do is start with the managers first and help them understand who they are and how they come across and how they interact, and then take it to the employees. And one of my other friends who worked for Marriott for 10 years, she said that they use strengths all through her department. And what they did is they knew everybody's strengths. They were on like a sheet of paper, and they had it when, say if I called you, I would have your strengths in front of me so I would know kind of how you came across. And one time, this is how it really worked. She and her boss had a conflict. It was like her boss was getting irritated at her for not following through. So they took out a flip chart each, and they wrote their top strengths on it. And then they talked about it and said, okay, when I tell you to do something, her name's Helen, I'm coming from this thought process. And Helen said, oh, well, when you tell me to do it, I'm coming from over here. And she said that melded everything together. They understood each other. They began to realize how they needed to talk to each other and work it out. So that's a great example of how you can use that in an environment to not condemn, not to think, oh, you're terrible, you know, how we get angry at each other, but rather go, okay, you need me to give you a deadline, which is what they worked out. Her boss said, okay, I need to give you a deadline because you'll get it done, but you need a deadline. And that was solve the problem, right? So that's kind of one example of how you could use it.
Yeah, I think these assessments are fascinating too. I know when I took mine, I was shocked to learn that connectedness was my number one strength, to know how all of life and all of people are connected. And I knew that was a strength of mine, but I didn't know it was my number one strength. But I also, in understanding that you get a whole list of your strengths on down to your very weaknesses, I was really more interested in learning what my three weaknesses were, greatest weaknesses were, not so I could focus on them, but to not focus on them anymore.
Exactly.
So I really concentrate on the things that I'm strong at.
Yeah, that's a fun thing because I still do, I take Sandler, and we had to make these 5-year plans all the time. And I hated doing that. I couldn't do it. And I would feel bad. I'd think about skipping the class for years. Every time we did it, I'd hate it. And I got my strengths back, and my 34th was futuristic. I'm going, hallelujah, now I know why I can't do that. And so a friend of mine in the class, I said to him, I said, I now I know why I can't do it. He goes, well, futuristic's my number one, so I'll help you with that. You can help me with whatever it was. And we laughed about it, but it freed me. You're right. It's just like, I don't have to worry about that. I'm not feeling stupid. I'm feeling like I can do this better. So I'm just going to focus on that and not feel so bad. So yeah, I get it.
Well, and also too, for business owners who are learning to maybe learn more about their own self-leadership, you've done several of these workshops and seen a lot of these assessments. So what have you kind of seen in general about how people have maybe changed a little bit, changed their behavior about how they approach their own leadership and their own businesses, and how they interact differently with others after taking something like this?
Really strongly. I mean, it's been amazing to see. One guy said, "You saved my marriage." I'm like, "What? I wasn't here to save your marriage, right?" He's a business owner, but it took him to another level. That's why I kind of include your life in here, not just your work. But yeah, sometimes they take it back to work, and people begin to realize where there might be conflict, teams where they don't realize. One we were working on, one of the guys turned to the other one, goes, "Now I know why you just need all these things before you make a decision." It was like a light bulb went on, and it was freed them both to kind of go, okay, I just need to slow down. Like that's why I put that example in there. I need to slow down and give you time to digest this. And it doesn't make me mad anymore. It just makes me realize I just have to chill a little bit while you figure it out, and then I can charge ahead, right? So it's things like that manage in a workplace. And all the statistics show that everything goes up. The happiness in the world, the whole team goes up, productivity goes up. And a good example, if somebody wants to look it up, would be the state of Rhode Island. They became a strength-based state. And now people travel there, businesses travel there and take tours of some of their businesses. It took them about 5 years to kind of make the workforce more engaged and everything, because they were at the bottom of the heap. They were number 50 in workforce engagement. And they went from that to, I believe it was in the top 10 or maybe number 1. It was because every company there, I think they had like 275 different participant companies, and they all focused on learning the strengths and applying them. It changed their whole structure in Rhode Island, and they still do tours of those companies to find out what they do. And the most common thing that their employees say is, hey, we get to do what we like to do, and we get our environment's better, our managers understand us. It's all those positive things that make a difference. So it's huge.
Absolutely. And if I'm a leader, who have several employees underneath me, this assessment may help me to understand whether an employee is really utilizing their strengths in the workplace or not, and be able to potentially, put them in better position, to be more productive or be more efficient in what they're doing. That to me, that's a big benefit.
Oh, it's huge. I've had several stories. One manager did that with his whole team. and freaked out HR because they were like, no, you can't move people around, But he said, I have to, because, they're not functioning well here. And he said their productivity went way up. And it was just an amazing change that the employees had, because they finally figured out where they fit, where they didn't. And it's not that you're weak in it. It's just that, hey, I have a stronger ability over here. I can use that where you have a stronger ability here. And we start tending to work together as more of a team and not feel so inadequate all the time.
As you see on the screen, there's Jana's information, or email address, or phone number to contact her about taking the assessment or getting your team to take this assessment as well. There's a whole big report that comes out on this thing. It's not just getting a list, but it's a pretty good explanation on the factors, because this is not just personality. This is actually behavioral values that are involved here. So it's very, very informative. Any last parting words for us as we kind of wrap this up?
No, just one thing that fascinates me about this strength. I was dealing with a group of project managers in a facility, and they all took the assessment. We were working on it, and they all had one strength. I think about 5 out of the 9 had one strength, the same, quote unquote, till they started passing around their personal report, and they were all different. And it's how we apply it. That's what's so fascinating to me about this assessment. It's very unique. And it's you. It's not your neighbor who has that same learner or that same whatever. And they were totally fascinated, and they began to realize how their team worked differently, even though they might have that same strength. So it's not one size fits all. It's a very unique report. It's really very, very excellent for that. So thank you very much for the opportunity. I really have appreciated participating.
Well, Jana, thanks again so much for coming on to the Office of Business Diversity and Compliance and sharing this information with us. I think it's tremendously useful for leaders and business owners who are trying to be more efficient, not only just for themselves, but also the people that work for them. Especially if you're a small shop, you got to get the most out of your employees, the most efficient work that you possibly can, to make things work, especially if you've got a smaller budget, or you're just limited with your resources. So I think this is a wonderful exercise and a wonderful assessment to be able to give to your team. And so again, thanks to Jana Cardona for being with us today. And again, thanks for joining us here at Office of Business Diversity and Compliance. We'll see you soon for our next webinar coming up here just in a couple of days. So thanks, Jana.
Thank you, Taylor. Bye.